and I'm the political editor of Corriere Canadese. I must tell you that I'm not used to be on this side, and I don't even feel comfortable, so I hope to be, and I'm going to be very short. I want to say, however, that I'm very proud to be here today to say that our newspaper is sponsoring a cause that, an initiative, and we hope that none of us is going to be interested. We are going to need it, but there are thousands of Canadians that definitely they need for a transplant, and sometimes it's only because we are not sensitive and we don't know enough. We don't do what we can to help others. But there is someone that is very committed to this cause, and it's George Marcello, an Ontario organ recipient, and he's the founder and CEO of Step by Step. It's a Canadian non-profit charitable association, and he will be in Europe to collect information in order to present some of those ideas here in Ontario and help everybody to work together to solve and to go ahead with this such an important initiative. So here's Giorgio Marcello, and I'm sure that he has a lot of things to tell us, and you have a lot of questions to ask. Giorgio.
Thank you, Angelo, and good morning, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank Multimedia Nova for sponsoring the European tour, as well as believing in what we're trying to accomplish here, and to be a witness in our process. And to Alitalia, who are contributing all the flights. My story: almost 10 years ago, I received a life-saving transplant with 2 days left to live. I'm alive today thanks to a top-rate hospital staff, and I owe my life to the individual who died and the family that made a courageous and unselfish decision to donate organs. This individual saved 5 other lives as well as mine that day. Many organ recipients, including myself, are living normal, active, and productive life. Many medical communities a result of not receiving this precious gift. There is nearly 4,000 Canadians presently on the waiting list. The sad news is that Canada has continued to have one of the lowest rates in the world for many years now. The sad news is that many families have not received the comfort of donating their loved ones' organs. The sad news is that potential solutions to this dilemma have been neglected and ignored. We are here this morning to address these problems and to unveil our 2-year initiative called SOS 4000, and to bring light to NDP Peter Cormo's opt-out bill. He had his first reading in November 2004, and there's a copy of his bill on that table over there for people to pick up. The European tour is the first step. It's our first external step. From June 1st to June 15, I will be visiting 5 countries which lead the world in organ donations, and representatives of organ donor groups will host me. They will provide me with comprehensive information and show me how their countries address these issues. In total, 22 countries had changed their organ donor laws to opt out, and in every one of these countries there was a dramatic increase in organ donations. It's about time we start looking at this in Canada. The Canadian Organ Task Force, a committee that has members, that will have members from every party, will handle the report I bring back. This report will be viewed by all Canadians to consume so that they can have more knowledge. Many Canadians are unaware of this progress in Europe, and they need to see what's going on there. A questionnaire will be presented to Canadians. Canadians' voices are needed. The SOS 4000 campaign will begin on the road by January 2006. We're going back out on the road. Many of you have probably heard of our last campaign, Christopher's Wish, the young 14-year-old boy that needed a transplant and walked across Canada. Sad news is he's still waiting, and good news is he's got a spirit that keeps him alive. And this time we're going to have Christopher pass the torch to the first of 100 students that will relay this torch right across Canada. And during this time, the questionnaire is going to be passed throughout every community. We want to make sure that every Canadian gets to see this questionnaire. And we're targeting to have millions of Canadians voice their opinion. And one of the questions that will be on there is, do they want to change the system to opt out? As the CEO and founder of our charitable organization, Step by Step, I am responsible to many by exhibiting a very professional manner at all times. As a liver recipient and a very passionate and honest person, I sometimes really find it hard to hold back on my feelings. I have experienced many frustrations with government officials and related government groups. In 1999, I walked around the province of Ontario and organized about 50 press conferences. I was screaming to get Premier Harris's attention. The Premier responded to my pleas, and in his second-term throne speech, the Premier made an incredible announcement. He announced that his government was taking steps to invest $120 million and double the rate of organ donations by 2004. Premier Harris invited me to see him shortly afterwards, and I seen the sincerity in his eyes when he said that there would be no stone unturned to get this job done. I thought I met God as he said these words. Along the way, a strange twist happened. A few months later, our report and our recommendations were all neglected, as well as being rejected in having any role with this new committee that was formed by the government. We still don't know the answers to date why that happened. In June 2000, I started up my 12,000-kilometer 500-city walk across Canada. We were trying to reach the federal government as well as the media and Canadians from coast to coast. During this time, Ontario Liberals were defending me by saying that I was being neglected. All parties were hearing our recommendations. During this time, I had the opportunity to have an audience with Pope John Paul II. Just as important, I made contacts with European groups while I was in Italy. All provincial and federal groups did not respond to our recommendations. On January 2004, we launched Christopher's Wish, the 14-year-old boy who needed a liver transplant all his life and agreed to walk across Canada so that people can hear our pleas. Christopher still needs this transplant, as I mentioned earlier. And the Liberals that were defending me, I feel that they're presently rejecting me. Two Ontario governments, other provincial governments, and our federal governments are not listening. They are neglecting to seek another alternative that has great potential in solving our dilemma. We have simply just said, let's look at solving this issue another way. Some are saying that we don't have a problem with organ shortage. I say that they're in denial. To date, after 8 years of activities, including talking to millions of Canadians from all walks of life in 500 communities, Canadians have something to say. After talking to thousands of politicians from all 3 levels of government and many frontline hospital workers and related donor groups, Canadians have something to say. After hearing and witnessing case after case of emotional testimonies from Canadians that have suffered waiting on the list and live in every part of Canada, Canadians have something to say. Mr. Kormos is the first politician to have drafted an opt-out bill. Its first reading was passed in November 2004. We want to create a level playing field for Mr. Kormos because that presently doesn't exist. And then Ontarians will have a say. Thousands of volunteers across Canada will be paired to help us in this 2-year initiative, including some that are in the audience today. NeighborNet has contributed a marvelous site that will be our home for the next 2 years. And we're going to follow this press conference by showing a presentation of our new website in committee room number 2. And with that, the final words that I want to say is to our government and to Canadians, do we want to solve this issue or don't we? Because it's solvable. And with that, I'll pass the floor to Tony Bolo.
Thank you, George. Clearly, the task is large. Our role in this is small, but hopefully meaningful. I'm Tony Bola with NeighborNet, and we're going to be undertaking the online aspects of the campaign, and invite you to look at the site, and we'll be keeping it as up to date and current as possible, particularly as George comes back from Europe and his report, and subsequently monitoring the SOS 4000 campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, if there's any questions from reporters?
I'm not familiar with what the opt-out bill is. What is opt-out bill? Why does it have merit, do you think?
Well, the opt-out bill was first created in Spain, 1989. And at that time, that country realized how important organ and tissue donation was. And the king, along with the present government, made it a top priority. And they went through the process of finding the ways of solving their present shortage. And after doing a consensus in their country, the most effective way to maximize the potential available organs, a law was passed called opt-out, where everybody becomes registered already as an organ donor, but the public people in that country has the option to opt out. Soon after that, and up to today, 22 countries have developed that same system. And Spain will be one of the countries that we're going to be visiting. And, you know, they're going to sort of show us how they did it, you know, what the challenges were, where the support was. And we feel that that system will work here, and we feel that Canadians will support it because we've talked to millions of Canadians already.
Basically, everyone's an organ donor unless they say they specifically don't.
Kind of a negative option.
Yes.
Negative option.
We try not to use negative words with that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Is there not a human rights issue with that, though? The people, you know, people's bodies are their bodies.
During the time I'm in Europe, those questions were raised in Europe as well. I'm going to get a lot of information how most of those questions were answered or how they reacted, and there's more than one ministry that's going to be involved with this because there's also the legal ramifications in developing such a law. So the report that I'm bringing back will answer.
But how do you answer that question in the Canadian context? If somebody raises the issue of, you know, I want the choice to be able to say I'm an organ donor, not to have it imposed on me and have to do the negative.
Correct. Well, I did have lots of questions like that along the way while I was on the road. Basically, what we need to do is talk to Canadians about, first of all, you know, where our situation is with organ and tissue donations and the shortage. And if somebody would ask me that question, I would say presently, under our present system, our decision isn't legal binding. So if there's any case for a Charter of Rights, it's in our present system. We have rights to donate or to, you know, wherever our houses and finances go, we got legal documents. But we have no rights over our organs. It takes one family member, and it could be even a distant relative, to veto your decision. So when we talk about Charter of Rights, let's look at our present system. There's no rights whatsoever with our organs. So if it did come to a question of Canadians not feeling comfortable, we need to look at the whole picture here. There's 4,000 Canadians right now that need these precious organs to live. And from most of the Canadians that I talk to from coast to coast are in favor of the most effective system that's going to work, where there's no shortcomings. So we say, let's maximize our potential. Let's maximize the potential of saving people. And that is the most effective way that's been proven in these countries. And that's why we want Canadians to have a voice. We're going to have Canadians decide on which system should be used.
Now have the opt-out.
Which countries?
Yeah.
Most of them are European countries. Recently, Brazil was one of the first Latin countries that adopted this law. And there's also another country, I think it's Singapore, Spain, Portugal, Greece, Denmark, Italy, Switzerland. Should have had the list with me, but there's 22 in total.
They all have the
Opt out. Yeah. Yes, they do.
Obstacle. I mean, I saw you in Moncton. You were there, and you've gone right across with Christopher. What is it that's holding all this back?
It's a mindset, I think. You know, I think because you know we've been talking to so many politicians, and I think politicians have a fear of how the public's going to react to this, and that's why they don't take any aggressive steps in looking at this, and I've been trying to mention to them that they're wrong in that perception, because you know we've done 4 treks across the country. We visit 500 communities. We talk to Canadians from all walks of life. They don't have a problem in looking at this alternative. So if somehow we can alleviate those fears and show them that this is what Canadians want, I think that'll make it more comforting for them to pursue it, because I'm sure every politician wants to maximize the potential of organs and save as many lives as possible. It's just the idea of having the government, pass a law where everybody becomes registered is kind of foreign to them, you know. So this is why this report from Europe is going to help. They'll be able to see, because all the questions that were being asked by politicians and Canadians, they've answered those questions already. So we're going to come back with a lot of good information that will be very helpful.
How invasive would this system be? For example, the person that you got the liver from saved 5 lives. If we had the opt-out system and say I died, would you harvest all of my organs, just one of my organs? Would it be tissue? What would you be taking? Because as we know, sadly, hundreds of people die every day. Would you be harvesting something from everyone, or would there be a limit?
And that's a good question too, and that would depend on the particulars of the law that was passed here, because every country has an opt-out, but it's different in their countries on how they do it. Like for instance, Austria has what we call a hard opt-out. People in that country that opt out, if something does happen to them that they need a transplant, they go at the back of the list, and that's a hard opt-out. And Austria is getting close and leading the world in their rate of organ donations. So In some countries, they make it specifically you're opting out which organ don't you want to and then the rest of the organs would be assumed to be donated. So Canada can develop or cater their own system, like with all these different details on how we would want a Canadiana opt out,
When you say an opt-in, if I decided to opt out and then I needed a heart, I go to the
back of the list. Yeah. That's why it's called a hard opt out. Spain has a soft opt out. They've been leading the world in organ donations. And what we're saying about the opt out law as well is that it probably proved to be the engine in being one of the major factors in why donations went up. But there's many other things that still need to be done. You need in Spain, they pride themselves on having excellent teams in every hospital that comforts the family during that process. And as well, they have many hospitals that are equipped to, if any organs are available in any part of Spain, that the process could be done. And another very important thing to mention, besides the opt-out, is that Canada needs to start developing donations from non-heart beating donors. Presently, organs are only being retrieved under a brain dead scenario. And again, countries in Europe have been using the non-heart beating donations as well. So we're missing out on a even that much more of a bigger pool of availability. And I understand that there might be a hospital in June, St. Michael's, that might start that process, which is good news. But we need all our hospitals across Canada to start developing that. What we're saying is that we need to maximize the potential. This is a wonderful gift. Organ and tissue donations. Canadians from coast to coast want to become organ donors. There should be no reason why we're missing out on any of these organs and not save as many lives as possible. And that's been our goal from 8 years ago. Our goal from 8 years ago has been to maximize our potential. And Premier Harris said that that we should leave no stone unturned. We should mean that, and let's look at all the options, and that's why we want to present the option of opt-out and all these other things that we feel can benefit this situation.
Do you have to do this province by province, or could there be a federal law that would require this?
It would be a lot better if federal law just came in, but I'm afraid it's probably not going to work out that way. The way things look, hopefully we can get Ontario to be the first province to get this law passed, and as a result of that, I think we'll be able to influence most of the other provinces, and then eventually get a federal law. But it would be, it would be a lot better in a better world to have a federal law passed.
You said earlier that you thought you had met God after talking to Mike Harris on this a few years ago, well, I guess 5 years ago, and nothing happened. Have you met Dalton McGuinty on this, and if so, how did he react? Because this bill is from the NDP, and it might not pass. The Liberals might steal it, might make it their own, but you would have won by then. But did you talk to Dalton McGuinty?
Well, when I say we've been rejected, I'm meaning that in the past year, Mr. Smitherman, who I met, the health minister, called Christopher his health care hero, and we were very glad because we thought he was going to step up to the plate. During that whole year, we kept addressing our recommendations and the things to do, and it went unanswered. I haven't heard anything. And I haven't heard anything up until today. We did invite the Premier to hopefully attend this conference, but he was busy. I don't want to say that they're not going to do anything. It's just I haven't heard anything. And they were defending me during the Harris government that I wasn't being listened to. Mr. Gerard Kennedy stood up, I think, a couple of times saying that. So in my heart of hearts, I hope we can get the politics out of this, which sometimes makes it impossible, but I really hope that they look, there's an alternative solution here that we can get our government to start working on and looking at, and we feel it will help a lot of these people that are on the waiting list. So, I mean, I haven't really heard anybody say that we're wrong. At least give us that opportunity and say that we're wrong. I'll stop doing all this. But nobody said that I'm wrong.
Earlier that politicians were believed that people didn't want to hear about it. Is that, from your point of view, the main reason why there's a blockage there?
You know, along the way, I've met a lot of good politicians, and you know, some of them believed that this would probably be a good idea. What I sensed from them going any further with it was a fear on how the public would react to something like this. It was the question that was raised earlier: how are Canadians going to feel about the possibility of, say, the government owning our organs now? That would probably be the statement, you know. And that's why we need to talk about that, to explain why we would be doing something like that. We would be doing something like that so we can save lives. These are children, sisters, mothers, you know, with a situation that medical communities are calling a cure. So Canadians will go for that. That's been my experience. My only problem is that I didn't document all these things while I was on the road, and I should have, but I didn't. And this time we will. You know, we're going to have a clear voice from Canadians on how they feel about this, alleviate these fears or whatever you know politicians are feeling about that.
How many organ transplants are done every year now? Waiting list.
I don't have the exact figure, and it keeps changing. I believe there's 400 to 500. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience here that. 98,400. So I mean, it's probably raised a little bit, but the rate of donations this year have actually gone down in Ontario. You know, from the time that Premier Harris said he was going to double it, it's gone down. Statistics speak for themselves on what's working and not working.
How successful has it been in Spain? Has it gone down 50%, 20%? How have the numbers changed?
Well, I'm going to get, you know, a much better report, but from my conversations with and my research on that, they are like doing 3 or 4 times as well as we are. From what I understand, there's hardly anybody on their waiting list that doesn't receive an organ, and this started, you know, soon after the law was changed to opt out. And, you know, it becomes also an attitude and perception. You know, like the other reason why I'm excited to go there is because I want to talk to ordinary people in Spain. And you know, I think it's so accepted there that that's the thing to do. Like, you know, it's not a big deal anymore. You know, and I think, you know, Canada lags behind that. Another thing I found out was sometimes Canadians are reluctant to go to other countries to get things that are working there, to adapt them over here. But when Canadians come up with, you know, new things that work, we invite every country to come here and use it. And a good example of that was in Alberta, in Edmonton, when we discovered a cure for diabetics in transplantation, the islet of the pancreas. They must have gotten visitors from every country of the world to come and use that process in their country. So, you know, it's working in 22 countries. That's got to give us enough initiative or enough, you know, to let's try it over here.
Of the 4,000 or so people on the wait list, any idea how many people don't survive that wait?
Well, we do have, better equipment on, better drugs to prolong the lives of most of these people. It wasn't like, before. It depends. Sometimes, when you're on a waiting list, that means that your organ is terminal, and a doctor can tell you that you might have days, months, or years to live, but it's at any day really that it can fail you. So the way I look at it as, even though the doctors have told them that they might have a year, left to live still, it could be any day that they can die. That's the situation with when people go on the waiting list. It could be any day.
Of organs, would the cloning of organs be a solution? Like we just heard, like last week, there was, I'm not a scientist, but from what I understand, like it's possible to clone cells and organs, any organs that we want. Would that be a solution? Should that be the way to go instead of going the way you're trying to go?
Yeah, I believe that should be aggressively pursued. And that one day it would be great to, if something went wrong with us, that a hospital bank would carry all our organs there to get fixed. But in the meantime, we need to solve our present problem, and other 22 countries have shown dramatic successes by doing certain things. We need to start looking at that over here.
What countries are you going to? Spain?
I'm going to Spain, Austria, Italy, and France, and those countries, by the way, carry a pretty big population of people that live here in Canada. But I'm also going to England because the Liberals in England in 2004 presented an opt-out bill to the Blair government, and the Blair government rejected it. Now, this was with the backing of the British Medical Association. They all supported the bill. I'm going to find out what happened there. And from my understanding is that they didn't get the public behind on it. I think that was the missing piece. They didn't get the public behind it. And that's why the Blair government rejected it. But I'm meeting with some of the groups over there to find out, what went wrong and what they can do to change it, and, what they're doing about it.
You might have said it earlier, but how are you financed? I can see it's sponsored by the Multimedia Nova Corporation, but it's like you get donations or from people or what?
I nickel and dime it. Actually, we don't have, like, Multimedia Nova were one of the first big corporations to come behind us. In our past activities to accomplish all those treks, we were getting help from the average Canadian. If we needed a vehicle, we would go to a company to see if they would help us with that vehicle. Restaurants, we were phoning up restaurants to feed us, hotels to give us accommodations, and basically that's how we've been doing it all along.
What's your website going to be?
www.sos4000.com.
What does the SOS stand for?
Well, SOS, Sting made a song about SOS. Save our sick. And there's almost 4,000 Canadians that are waiting. So SOS 4,000.
And the torch, maybe carrying the torch, or the students became?
Yes, the torch is going back out on the road to be carried. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the story of the torch, but this torch has been carried and passed along through Canada for the past 5 years by millions of Canadians, including Pope John Paul II, who on September 2001 blessed the torch and reinforced his commitment on organ and tissue donation by proclaiming that organ and tissue donation was a genuine act of love and encouraged the whole world to become organ donors. And by the way, we haven't had any major religion groups oppose organ and tissue donations, but most people don't, well, not most people, but there's some people that aren't sure about that. So there's a variety of things that need to be done to solve this problem, including education and awareness. That is a big one. And we need to get more religious leaders involved so that they can talk on how their religion supports organ and tissue donation, so people are not confused and know that their religion is behind it.
Any timeline on when there'll be a second meeting?
I'm not sure. We first reading was in November. I'm hoping it's going to get sped up a little bit, maybe, you know, but I'm sure that there will be a second reading. It's Marcello, M-A-R-C-E-L-L-O.
Okay.
And how old were you when you had the transplant?
I was 40 years old, 10 years ago.
And whereabouts you from?
Toronto.
Married, any children?
No, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. My wife would go crazy if I kept going out on that road. And I don't have any pickup lines anymore anyways. I eat, drink, and sleep this stuff. Yep. So we're going to go in committee room number 2 if we're going to do a presentation of the website.